Hello, and welcome back to Dev Game Club, weekly podcast in which two veteran game developers look at games from the past to discuss their relevance and impact today. I'm Brett Duville, and I'm joined as always by my co-host, a man who, as a gadget engineer, creates executive gadgets for Chairman Drek.
Tim Longo. If I could do the voice, I would, but I'm not even going to attempt it.
Yeah, I wouldn't even know where to begin with Chairman Drek. Voices are not my thing.
No, I meant the. You
the little guy, right? That's right. You meet the gadget engineer. I did.
Yeah.
He's buy a gadget from him. Do you buy? I forget what you buy from him.
The boots. You get the boots.
The grind boots. Yeah. That's right. Yep.
Yeah, his voice though was very like Warner Brothers. Like it was a very specific. I don't know if it's who's the Martian guy?
Marvin
the Martian. Yeah, it might have been his kind of voice. But anyway, yeah, a lot of Warner Brothers feeling tone to this game in a good way. Versus whatever Disney or Hanna-Barbera.
Right, and that game, of course, is Ratchet and Clank. Yeah, it's got sort of a zany propulsion to it. A lot of that stretch and squish that we talked about.
Humor is the humor. Similar to that. It's more of potty mouth humor, kind of, or not. I don't know what's the.
Yeah, it's low. It's broad. Let's say it's broad and lowbrow humor. Which I think we didn't talk about that as a topic, but it's like I think that part of why that is that it's easier for that to land without timing.
Yeah.
Right. Because it's just, it just cuts to the 6-year-old in you or whatever. It just cuts through and it just works whenever, like, to a certain degree. I think that might be why that's so prevalent in film to some degree in the last. I mean, there's a lot more sort of that going on in comedy these days. I mean, I don't see a lot of comedy films. I'm really kind of talking out of my behind at this point. But
no, anyway. I do. And I mean, Jackass is one of my favorite movie series. And Jen, she is appalled. She's appalled. Like, I don't even know. What's a more extreme? You're the Mr. Grammar. What's a more extreme version of appalled? That is a word that I could use. Oh,
my goodness. Wow, like, really putting him on the spot there.
I just want something more extreme because appalled doesn't.
Is she actually revulsed?
She's revolt. Yeah, she's revulsed at it and just
devastated,
disgusted. Yeah. Every time I say that, and it is. I mean, there's nothing funnier than somebody. It hits. I never thought we would talk about this in terms of Ratchet and Clank, folks. But I'm sorry for the tangent. But I mean, there's just nothing funnier than somebody in a porta potty that's put on a skateboard and pushed down a hill in the porta potty.
Sure.
I just don't. To your point, like there's just something about lowbrow humor like that, especially slaps of the slapstick variety. That, I mean, it was in Shakespeare. It was in all classes of past theater. It's a melodrama, right? Of early Americas. Notwithstanding some of the very offensive versions of that stuff, but
sure. Yeah.
Listen to 1619 project or read it. But anyway, yeah. So, I think it fits well for this game because it is just a very frenetic, kinetic, just like, game where it's because it's so weapon based rather than like we talked about in the first episode, and which was a misconception of mine, as I think I said then too. It's just a lot of chaos all the time. So it's like if you tried to like do more of a Disney humor or like even like a Nintendo kind of cutesy humor to it or something, I don't know if that would match well with like what you're doing,
right.
I'm just spraying and praying all the time and just flamethrowers are happening and it's just like bombs, and like I'm throwing grenades that are little robots that go after things. Like, it's just I'm sucking in enemies to fire them,
blast
as
them
missiles.
back out. Yeah, and then their actual they use the actual model to fire back out. Is pretty great in kind of a ball shape.
Yeah, there's some Oddworld in it for me. Although Oddworld does tend to have, I think, a little bit more deeper thematic things they're trying to do with Oddworld.
Oh, absolutely. Here. Yes. Yeah. Stranger's Wrath is something we might want to talk about someday. We would probably want to play Oddworld, the original Oddworld first, but it's probably the more
clever game. Yeah, but anyway. I don't know. I'm having a good time. Yeah, but and we did miss a week too. So
we missed a week.
Mention that, but as far as thanks for letting us take a vacation.
Yeah, thanks for staying with us. We should talk about the weapons because first of all, I want to confess, like I forgot, and this happened to me last time I played these games. That I played this first one and went, oh right, they didn't have this in the first game, and I. Between then and now, forgot that and came and played it. And I was like, oh, right. They didn't have this in this game. And that in particular is that the weapons, as the series goes on, and now I'm like paranoid, like, when does this get introduced? But the weapons actually all upgrade sort of continuously. I mean, there are discrete levels, but just by using them, you increase the level of the weapons. So you'll start off with the bomb glove, but then you'll get like, it will, as you use the bomb glove a bunch, you'll get version 2 of the bomb glove, then version 3 of the bomb glove, and then version 4 of the and you get up to like 5, I think, in the main game, and maybe then you use the gold bolts to unlock 6 through 8 or something. I don't remember how that part of it works.
Oh wow, that's a lot of levels.
There are a lot of levels. I can't remember if it's that or if it's like the New Game Plus that you get the additional weapons. And in this original game, there's really just 2 versions of every weapon, but even that is a lot because we're going to end up with something like 20 weapons or something, and they just get more and more ridiculous to some degree, and they're already pretty ridiculous. Like, I don't think you've gotten Mr. Zircon yet.
No.
So that'll be something. He's definitely one of my favorite weapon characters in all of video games. So
weapon characters? What do you mean weapon characters? He's a weapon. He's a character. Okay,
that's all I can say for now.
He's the Vorpal sword kind of situation.
we will see. But that is one thing. It's been funny because I was playing in a particular style because I was expecting the weapons to just level up, and I thought it was just going to surprise you with one of the weapons leveling up just as you used it. But that doesn't happen in this game. So it's something I alluded to last time, and then I'm playing and I'm like, hey, I would have thought by now that the bomb glove would have upgraded. And then I go on and look, and I'm like, oh, wait, there's no like XP bar on the weapon.
So that starts in the second game, you think?
I think it may start in the second game. I think it definitely starts in this original trilogy. I just don't remember exactly when or how.
It's interesting because you mentioned that there was something that would be surprising.
Yes, and that was what I was thinking of. Yeah.
So obviously I've been keeping an eye out, and my theory was actually more related to Clank, the Clank levels, and like there's this sort of like mini squad / Pikmin sort of
there's that
happens
too.
There, which is I was very surprised about and kind of delighted that like he gets a squad of robots that he can control. I don't know. I hope they do more of that. But it's he's on your back the whole time, so you assume they're going to use him in some way, and obviously he's also your propeller, hovering guy. So I don't know if diegetic's completely appropriate here, but I just love the contextual nature of it. All of the mechanics they're doing are just tried and true. Like there's nothing necessarily fresh other than some of the presentation of some of the weapons and the ideas behind some of the weapons, but I just love when they contextualize things in a cool way, like upgrading Clank, to have this propeller thing. And now that's how you're gliding, and it all kind of like works. It's not just you get a gliding backpack. It's like Clank is the gliding backpack and et cetera, et cetera. And so the same thing with the weapons, the lock and key nature of some of the weapons, and they could have just done a key, but they made it a weapon, and that's neat. I like that. I like that approach.
One thing I do appreciate about even the first game, and a lot of these weapons will make a return. I think there may be some. I think there are definitely new ones in each game, but a lot of the sort of favorites come back again and again and again, and you're just like basically playing new, new levels that you're playing through all of this stuff, new challenges, new stories, etc. But fundamentally, they have sort of a vibe that is sort of increasing silliness, right? I mean, you get to the suck cannon, you're like, suck cannon?
Yeah.
What
yeah,
the heck?
Yeah.
It's like, oh, okay, I had a flamethrower, I had a bomb thrower, I had a blaster, just a straight up blaster. It shows me what it's gonna hit, and pretty straightforward. And then it's like, and now I get the glove of doom or the suck cannon, and it's just strange, and they get stranger, certainly as the series goes on. I think in this game too, there's going to be some additional sort of strange ones. I've already mentioned Mr. Zircon, who I love.
I met somebody who can sell me a rhino.
Yes, rip you a new one.
It's very expensive though, so I won't be getting it anytime soon. But yeah, there was a funny little. They even had a scene talking about that as an as introduction to it. So yeah, I'm looking forward to
that
it.
That one not only does it come back, but it like they make it progressively. It's sort of like in The Mask. You remember the movie The Mask? To your Warner Brothers point. There's a point where he like pulls out these guns and they like fold out multiple times and they're just enormous. And they have, he pulls one out of each pocket and they're just like have all these attachments and like beeping things and whatever and targeting and etc. It's like that. That's the Rhino. But like each game, it gets progressively more ridiculous.
That's funny.
That one just keeps coming back and back and back. It's usually the last one you get in the games. And it's just like, it's like that. And it that's why Warner Brothers is a particularly good touch point, because The Mask is meant to be Warner Brothers as well.
Yeah, for sure. Yep. Yeah. Awesome. Yeah, I wrote another note I wrote down is which I don't think I said this last episode, but as I was playing this last time, I thought to myself, man, we could not have gotten more opposite from Final Fantasy VI. Did I say that last time? I feel like I did. Yeah,
you probably did.
It hit me again. It hit me again. I was just like, wow, yeah, this is like, because it's just complete mayhem and just tomfoolery and fairly linear. There's definitely some openness of which I do like, and of course I know that of the era, we're not quite there yet as an industry, but because I think the game would be much better with some more openness, but because the levels are almost there, really. Like there's backtracking and some looping paths and things in the way the levels work, but largely they're mostly linear. I guess I'm betting that as you get more gadgets and maybe things that you might have more options within the levels if you return a second time.
Yeah, that is definitely true, because we've already found a couple of the gold bolts, which are the ways that that's how you actually level up the weapons. I think it takes 4 of those per weapon to upgrade them. So you can guess there's a lot of them out there. And at a certain point, I believe you get a mapulator or something, a map device that will actually reveal to you on each planet where they are.
Oh, good.
So if you go there and you have the map, you won't have found that place, but it'll give you an indication of like, oh, it's over here. You just look at the map, scroll around, and be like, oh, there's one over here. And then you go and you kind of like try to tease out the navigation puzzle of how to actually get to that thing. It's a lot of fun. I'm a huge fan of games that have that sort of collection mechanic that give you tools. I don't care if I have to buy them, earn them, whatever, but I want them to be there. I want the help. I want to know how many things there are, and I want to have some help in finding them. And this game does a pretty good job of that. Sly Cooper also did that in a different way. It told you how many things there were, but there were audio cues for when you were near them, so you could just sort of be in the level running around and hear it. you hear the sound of the dancing bottles or whatever it was, and go, oh, okay, there's one near here. I need to look around, see what I'm missing. What haven't I done? Oh, can I get up there? That sort of thing. And this game does that as well. I mean, we've already got a new traversal ability with the hover. You can jump higher, and you can float, down to something further away, and you can do a long jump. So very versatile.
Yeah, and there's more contextual, but the grapple hook we have as well, and
the swing shot. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the slingshot, and the
swing shot. It's not a slingshot. It's
a
swing shot.
Swing shot. Yeah, got it. So there are enough gold bolts to, if you find all of them, you can upgrade everything, or do you have to pick and choose?
And I think it also costs money, or regular bolts. So it's like it costs 4 gold bolts and some amount of money to upgrade. It's a lot. And it's not necessarily well balanced for that. So I don't think we'll necessarily be doing that this time around. But I have done it in every one of the games. I've upgraded all the weapons all the way.
Oh, holy cow! Yeah.
Yep. In all the mainline games, yes, I have. This is the only series of games where every game I've gotten a platinum trophy. Every single entry that I've played, yeah.
Wow. Yep.
So that's like 7 platinum trophies or something like that I've gotten for this series. This remake has trophies. The PS3 ones have trophies, and then of course there's just the one PS4 sort of remake of this game. So, I have spent a lot of time with Ratchet Clank.
You are the experts.
Yet I still couldn't remember some of the quirks of this game. We had just mentioned the gadgets, the swing shot. One of the things that you see in this series, and it was fun to play it in real time back in 02, 03, 04, or whatever the years were that the first 3 came out, and literally see quality of life improvements happening right before your very eyes. I mean, they got a lot of stuff quite right, but the gadgets were something that were really not right. You have to actually go specifically equip the specific gadget you want to use the swing shot, for example. Just to jump and attach to something that's floating, you have to have that equipped as your main weapon, and then fire it like any other weapon, and they get rid of all that. I think they move it to X, like you hit X and hit X again or something. I don't remember how they did it, but they just made it contextual. There's something in range, and you can just do that sort of thing. That's one of the things that I again was reminded this time. Oh, that's right, they didn't have everything quite right at the beginning, but they are very close.
You can see where you can see a blueprint that can be. I think that's the beauty of a great series that does well enough, and that the company and publisher commit enough to say, okay, well, let's do more of these so we can iterate, because you don't always get that luxury. But it's good. It's good enough to see how, it would be successful enough for them to want to keep iterating on it. And you can completely see, especially in this era, which we've talked about because we've played a lot of games in this era. Seeing, it seems like it's probably, you mentioned the contextual gadgets as an example of a specific feature that would iterate over time, but, it's probably a good sort of case study in how the industry was also changing at the same time, meaning the concept of contextualization at all, right? Automating some of that stuff and user friendliness of it, usability of it that we've talked about from time to time, as it just became more of the norm. The other example of the time is basically third person shooting, I guess I'll say, as a blanket, right? Like they make some specific assumptions in this game about what good ideas are for making that feel good and fluid, and even playing this game, like the way that aiming works, or adding in a left trigger, option, which maybe they do later or something, or a lock on, because it's a little sloppy and kind of vague to me sometimes about how to use some of the weapons. But these problems get solved throughout other games and just throughout the industry in general, right? And they would either they might be leading the charge, or they're adopting some of this stuff that just become norms, and so and to see a series with so many entries, and then also so many quick entries, like didn't they come out like annually for a little while?
Yeah, basically annually for a number of years, I believe. I haven't looked at the specific release schedule, but that's my playing them in real time back then, that was my recollection, and how excited I was to jump out and play them. They were mascots. It was returning to an ongoing story, funny characters, the Warner Brothers kind of feel, that I really appreciated. But yeah, I mean, seeing those evolutions of design in real time, whether or not they originated them or brought them in from elsewhere. One of the things we have to keep in mind is that, this game comes out, 4 years after, I was going to say after Dylan went electric, but after LucasArts went 3D, right? Remember LucasArts declared in, I think the year I started, or maybe the year before, they were going to be only 3D games from then on. Weird choice, but okay.
PR move.
Still not sure how I feel about that choice, but all these years later. But this is not deep into 3D, and so all that stuff is still being figured out. And of course, with things like weapons, it's not something that projectile and sort of just ridiculous levels of weaponry. This is not the sort of thing that Nintendo does a ton of, right? So they weren't leading the charge on those sorts of things, which meant other people had to pick up that slack.
That's a good point. Yeah, this is enough of a delta off of your traditional Crash Bandicoot, or what have you, that they are able to kind of stay away from Nintendo and kind of do their own thing. So that's a good point. That probably would be a differentiator versus like their previous series, which we talked about in the first episode of Spyro, which is much more of a direct. My memory of it was much more of a direct platformer kind of a mascot game. That's going to be much more directly compared to a Mario. But this one, they're definitely, they made enough direction decisions early on because of its shooting stuff and some of its RPG elements, I guess, that it's it can own its own space, which is nice.
Yeah, and that is a definite with Spyro. You're also looking at a game that is definitely a collection game, more so than this is, right? I mean, this is sort of like ridiculous with how many bolts are lying around. I mean, you're not intended to collect every bolt, right? It doesn't care. You go away and come back, you can have more bolts. Like, I mean, there's going to be more crates everywhere, and sometimes even just when you respawn, they're there. The rules on that are a little weird, not entirely consistent.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I feel like it's generous though, in terms of always making sure you have enough to be able to go back and buy more ammo if you've run out of ammo. Like, this is a game in which you can basically fail forward, right? You can get to a point where you're stuck and bang your head against the wall again and again and again, and then be like, you know what, I'm going to go buy that. I've now got enough bolts. I'm going to go buy that new weapon that I haven't. And in fact, the tutorial help occasionally will mention that, like, having trouble with this enemy, try the taunter, and trying to encourage you to, to use different gadgets, different things in your toolbox to overcome the challenges throughout. I've noticed that's happened multiple times, at least 2 that I can think of. There are others that are more specific, like, hey, you need a trespasser, and there isn't one on this planet, right? If you go to I guess it's Eudora, and didn't find the one on Iridia, I think is where the trespasser is, which I hadn't. I got there and I was like, oh, do I have to go forward and then come back? And then I was like, no, I'm out of infobots. I have to go back. I must have missed something. And in fact I had. So.
Right. Infobots. Yeah. Infobots are sort of like the the primary objective kind of thing.
Yeah, they're the map breadcrumbs. Like you got to find the info bot so you can find the next map. And they're both they're sort of a reward as well. This is a game that has lots of channels for reward. There's lots of little bits of story, of course. Sometimes you just get that. Sometimes you have to find an infobot for it. Sometimes you have to find a character for it, etc. But there's lots of different ways that they delivered that. And then, of course, being able to buy more weapons or just find, in some cases, more weapons is also its own reward. Plus, you've got the gold bolts. I mean, there's just a lot of different avenues to give you stuff, and there's money everywhere, right? I mean, there's, that's just lying around all over the place.
It reminds me of, I think they came after this, but the Lego games, the brick collection is basically the bolts from this game.
Yeah, not until 2005, Lego Star Wars.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's
late
very obvious and simple influence that this game had, right? On just like, don't be precious about collecting every single thing, of a certain currency. Just make them currencies, make them fly all over the place. Don't have the player worry about if they miss some or some fall off of a ledge or whatever. It's just sort of like fun, physicsy, very tangible. I mean, it's a little bit like Mario coins, but those sort of have, I mean, I guess there's a scalability to them, but for the most part, they're sort of like a known amount. But this is kind of endless,
Yeah, they're specifically placed in Mario. I mean, I think you could re-enter worlds and they would be there again, right? So you always could do that, I believe. In Mario
their worlds are, they're refreshed every time, though, right? They're discrete. Right. Versus this is just sort of like you said, it replenishes. So, I mean, I guess the reason I'm bringing that up in the Lego example is the bolt system, which might be over giving him too much credit for calling it a full system, but it is technically. It matches the game well because it's such a chaotic and kind of carefree game that if you were in the middle of this chaos, having to sort of manage, like say for instance, you did have to get every bolt, as it is now, like it just wouldn't work. It wouldn't match well, so it's a good partner to the rest of the design, that the way the currency works. I definitely am interested to know, though I'll probably never have time to do it, to see the leveling system for the guns. Cause I do see how that would be cool. I personally am often skeptical of what I would I think is called, and what I would call a skill-based leveling system, meaning the more you use a skill or a thing, the more it levels up. Because it's sort of like, I don't know, like what if I don't like that thing? I guess
you don't. I mean, there's so many, right? That unless you're a completionist and you want to get everything, the thing is like you're gonna top them out, right? They're gonna hit whatever level 5.
They're generous,
right? And I mean, it's just go kill as many enemies as you want, right? And then when you hit the level 5, you're like, you know what? Now I'm going to switch to the pyrociter or whatever it's called, right? And now I'm just going to try to fry things all over the place. And you kind of at that, if you're the sort of person who's interested in that, you'll go and spend the time to do that. But generally speaking, you don't have to. It's like you're using a weapon because it's effective, and then it just powers up and it does more stuff. Like you drop the I feel like the bomb glove, which is not a great weapon. It's kind of a pain to aim, and
I use it a lot, actually. I like it.
I do like it, but what if it dropped and kicked out 3 more bombs, right? That bounced around, right? Yeah. And it's just like, that kind of bounce around or, whatever it does. I certainly don't remember exactly what any of these things does. Or like when it impacted, create a wave of fire that went out besides, right? I mean, it's just like these things just add and add. It's not like they just do more damage. They add
behaviors, additional
effects and behaviors that are they're all kind of additive. There are cases where it's, really just a bigger boom or whatever, does fire goes further or whatever. But generally speaking, it is a genuine feels like a somewhat different gun. It has the same base behavior, but it does other stuff as well, and it's just a blast.
Well, you make a good
speak.
point. Yeah, you make a good point that it's I like what you did there. You make a good point that it is a the skill-based leveling system that I always come back to is like some of the earlier Elder Scrolls games,
Morrowind,
Morrowind being sort of the ultimate example, and and the reason that those don't tend to land well with me is that something like jumping or swimming is not inherently fun to do. Right. And so, but you feel like you need to level it up to achieve certain goals that you have. But in this game, it's more positive reinforcement for doing something you're going to do already anyway. Unless, like you said, you're a completionist. Because if the gun, the system, or the mechanic is fun enough on its own, you don't really care that you're using it over and over again because you're going to be anyway, right? So, yeah, as long as they don't get to, I guess here's an example. If they ever... which you don't have to answer this for me unless you... Well, I guess it wouldn't be the case in this game because they're not doing it in this game. But
right.
The example that I always come back to is like if there's ever a point where you need to use a certain gun at a certain level to get by something, then... Yeah,
never happens. So I mean, it's certainly easier to have a maxed out Rhino 6, to
yeah, but it's not like there's a lock and key.
But it is not. It's never required. You can... Yeah, you can just go through... You could go through... I mean, it would be probably difficult, but you could go through basically any level with just the base weapons, if they hadn't.
So as long as they maintain that, then it would never bother me. But yeah.
You're just... I mean, the funny thing is, you'll literally just be in the middle of combat. You'll throw out a bomb with a bomb glove, for example. It'll kill a thing, and then everything will stop. You'll have a full screen video of like your weapon upgrading.
Nice.
With like the thing spinning in the middle of the screen, and like musical cue, and ta-da! The whole thing. They really, right? They'll just disrupt, combat entirely. To just say, oh, hey, cool. It just, there's like almost a drum roll build up to like, oh, and now you've got the version 2, or whatever. It's very funny. And they all look different. I mean, it's the same weapon, but it looks like it's got an improved model as well.
That's
so they
really
really
cool.
they lean all the way in.
How do you...
It's a distinguisher. So
yeah, for sure. I mean, there's not another mascot game that goes in this direction that I can think of, really.
No, I don't think so.
Stranger's Wrath is maybe the closest thing you can get, but it's not even really a mascot game. That's more of an offshoot. But so I have a gold bolt. How do you upgrade it? Is there something we haven't found?
Yeah, I believe there's a vendor somewhere who will sell you. There might be more than one, but you can go to a vendor, a specific character, who will, and they'll tell you that they can do this for you, that they can upgrade your weapons if you've got. I think they even say if you've got the gold bolts. Yeah, I don't think we'll have found that person yet, because I think at this point in the game, I've only found 2, and I just kind of, was
like, that's right. You said you need 4 to. Yeah.
You need 4 for each, right? And I'm pretty sure there's 1 or 2 places where you can do that, although I don't remember specifically.
That's
where.
A lot of bolts.
I'd forgotten entirely. It is a lot of bolts. It's a lot of bolts.
I have to start thinking about which ones, because I'm not going to get them all, so I'm going to have to think about which ones I want to upgrade.
Yeah,
interesting.
I'm going to look and see how many gold bolts in Ratchet and Clank 1. There are 20. No, that's the PS4. Yeah, I'm gonna have to go. I'll have to go look. I think it's 40, something like that. I think it's 40. That's my memory. Now that I'm actually playing it, I'll have to do math, arithmetic.
As far as number of levels, I'm looking at the level list, and like we might actually be. Well, I might be not far from halfway through.
I was right.
The number.
It's 40. It's 40 in this first game.
Okay. So that's like looks like maybe there's 10 total levels or something.
There are
Because I'm looking at this list, and
it's 8. I think it's 18. But some of the these are all locations. Well, some of them are not. There's some things that some styles of gameplay we have not yet hit.
Yeah, that's true. It looks like it's about 16 or something.
Yeah,
but yeah.
So,
yeah, you mentioned that. Yeah, and I know we have the boots, and there's a hoverboard that I'm looking for right now.
Yeah, you're gonna have to get a hoverboard so you can compete and win the whatever, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
Those are tough to. I mean, you don't have to do multiple races. I don't think. I think you just have to. But the hoverboard races take some getting used to. Apologies in advance. Those are not super easy on the first game. There are some other sort of variant bits of gameplay, and that is one of them. And each. There are different games have different sort of side stuff that they do, and that is always a sort of charming thing as well. Is that here there's some flight action we're going to get into, I believe.
Oh wow!
And the hoverboards. I think those are the two things. The grind rails are kind of built into levels, and those I think continue pretty much throughout the series. I feel like those are in every game. But
yeah, I heard people talking about them in the very new one, the newest one on the PS5.
Yeah, I feel like that's always a thing, right? And it's a lot of sort of simple platformy stuff, like jump between these 3 different rails, or timing, like make sure you jump over here to avoid taking damage and jumping back, and things like that. So those sorts of things are going to come up, but they are in the context of other levels. There are no grind only levels or anything like that. I don't think. So anyway.
Yeah.
Circling back on level design, one of the things that you mentioned is, the sort of paths back. I think this was the first game where I really appreciated that. It might be the first game that I really saw it, which was just being really, really good about taking you back sort of to the inside the level hub, right? Which is usually your ship, basically, because multiple paths come from there. But I feel like the level design is really well done in that respect. You go into an area, you find the whatever you're looking for that's on that path, the agent, or the water succulator, or the trespasser, or whatever. You find these things, and then you circle back. Actually, the water thing I think is the exception, because I think that's on the warship, and you have to run back through the warship. Oh no, that's an infobot. That's the one time where I'm like, ugh, I never love that part of that level because it's timed besides.
Yeah.
You can just ignore the enemies. I just kind of run.
Yeah, that's what I did. It's pretty short.
You can do it in it's pretty short. If you just run, it's no problem. Anyway, it's
well, and that combined with the map, the fact that they even have a map, which most of these kinds of games don't, like you can, I think that they show those paths. It's just fog of war, like they show you what rooms you've been or what areas you've been to on that kind of a fog of war sort of way. But I think you can see the paths, so you know kind of where you haven't been. I actually had to use that at one point to kind of like, wait, I think I missed a turn someplace, and like that. I mean, it can be used as a crutch sometimes, but I will say that in a game like this, where sometimes the landmarking is similar enough to other spots in the level where I'm not sure, if I've been here yet or not. So it's nice to have that at least as a stopgap to go to the map. I'm thankful for it. Yeah. And then you can see the loops you're talking about in the map as well.
Yep. Like, for sure. Yeah. You can see them really well. And that's super, super helpful. But I do really love that. This is a game where you're going to go off somewhere, you're going to go do a bunch of stuff, and then if you just keep pressing, it'll take you back to the beginning, and every planet has these sorts of sections. Some are better than others, but for the most part, you kind of just get back to where you were, and, if you want to get in your ship and go away, which often you will, it's easy enough to do that. So I do really love that about the game. So anyway. Let's see if there's any other stuff you want to talk about. Clank outside. We kind of touched on the map a lot, but that was one thing I think you were a little surprised about. That's sort of a little bit variant gameplay, when you switch to be Clank.
Yeah, I mean, I was hoping that it would happen. It makes sense that it would happen, and then when it did, I was happy to have it. I hope they do more of it, though. I don't know. We'll see. I guess we'll see if it happens. But yeah, not only just did you get to play as him and he has a few different things that he does, but specifically there was this one sequence which they could probably make a whole game about, there is a game about it. It's called Pikmin, um, where you have these sort of squad command, like his weapon wheel becomes this sort of squad mechanic, squad commands. And that was, I mean, it ended up being a bit of a lock and key, but you also, that you could use them as weapons and they can attack things. I feel like they kind of even changed the scale a little bit of things because he's shorter. And so that was kind of a fun element to it. So yeah, I mean, he's there on your back the whole time. So on Ratchet's back the whole time. So you just want him to do more than that. So that was fun. And yeah, I don't know. I hope they do more of it. I mean, he's a robot, right? He can hypothetically do so many things. Although now that I think about it, does he have the glide when he's by himself? Can he glide? I don't remember if I did that.
I think that he can.
I assume he must be able to. Yeah.
There's just I think actually you may need to get the gold bolt in that area.
Oh yeah, and I don't know if I did actually.
You might need to. I can't
need to
remember.
Go back. Yeah.
If you end up wanting to go back and get a bunch more, a lot of them have to do with the sort of being able to get places you couldn't before in a sort of Metroid way.
And for those sorts of games, I tend to like play pretty far to get as many tools as possible before I go and backtrack, to do that stuff, because I hate getting,
because you don't want going back going back again.
Yeah, it's like, I thought I had the thing I needed. Or there's a thing I don't even know I'm going to get, right? Because you haven't gotten it yet, so it's like you don't know what your expectations are. I keep, like, for instance, it seems like maybe there's some breaking of walls that you can do someday. There's these little like antennae that are sort of sticking out of the ground at certain spots, like with a little yellow disc, a little yellow receptacle. They're just sitting there multiple places in multiple maps. And so I assume there's
that's a thing, and I don't remember what it is. This is terrible. I'm definitely getting old.
I'm surprised. This is definitely.
Well, the thing is, I've played so many of them, and the last time I played them in a huge stream. Like, I just played them again, and I played one after the other, and so they all blend together.
They blend together, yeah. Especially, it's a series that seems like they are so iterative that they do feel like one long game versus a lot of some series, are very distinctly, they try to be very different with each game, and this one seems to not want to do that in a good way.
Right. There are a few games that are different in the series. There is a game that is all Clank. I think it was on the PSP and has never been ported anywhere else, but it was a thing. I would play that. If anybody wants to bring it to something else, please do so.
So you can't get that like on PS3 store or anything, or it's not?
I don't think so, although I've never actually looked. I don't know that it was ported.
Maybe not.
Now I'm like,
that was maybe Ready at Dawn or somebody else, right? Maybe was that?
It was Secret Agent Clank. It was High Impact Games.
Yeah. Okay.
So
wasn't them? Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, it was it says it was on the PS2. So at some point they brought it over to the PS2, and I just missed it. Oh well.
You need to figure out what happens to Clank at that.
Whatever happened
story.
To Clank?
Yeah, Secret Agents. That sounds good
stuff. I could watch this 6-hour long play.
I'm enjoying it. I did want to briefly mention, like, in this era, especially with our Warner Brothers comment, and in this era, the voice acting I think is good for what it's doing, especially Clank. I think they nailed him, and Ratchet's a little bit irritating, but I can see where he's going to probably go in the future and will probably become quite a neat character. The villains are all great, like they just nailed that sort of, again, Warner Brothers feel, like Marvin the Martian and and etc. And then
reminds me a little bit of Adrian Ripberger as well. Sir, I am not waiting for you to die. From Full Throttle.
Yeah, right. Yeah. I think it's at LucasArts levels of voice acting. The writing's mostly good. I think it's sort of that lower broad, as you say, I guess is a better way to put it. But the other thing is the music. There's just I don't know if it's just a 90s zany sci-fi thing, or, I don't know. There's got to be a musician would be able to kind of give us the term for it. There's probably some subgenre term for it, but you hear this music and you're like, oh yeah, that's that music. We talked about, I think I made even early on in the first episode, I mentioned I cross-referenced Anachronox as another sort of like zany moments of sci-fi, right? Where a lot of this music I think would fit in with some of those levels. But there's just a 90s aesthetic to Space Quest, right? Is another example.
Sure. Or even, like the Incredibles soundtrack.
The Incredibles,
that's Giacchino, or however you pronounce his name. But it definitely has that feel of like 70s.
They're emulating a certain
feel.
thing.
Yeah. That's a sort of thing. Late 60s, 70s, spy movie thing, sort of, and that's sort of here too. The themes themes have to be a little bit more easily repeated here. Like, there's a lot of dun, sort of stuff, just kind of like a little bit of percussive to break things up. And then, they're not major themes. Each has to be able to fade away.
The thing I appreciate about them is that they do have a good addition. They add to the characterization of each planet. As soon as you get to the planet, the music gives you there's the darker one, there's the one where the logging's happening, there's the one that's like in the ocean, and they all kind of like have a bit of a good theme that fits where they are. And they're not as sticky as maybe they could be, but I think they work well, and I think they fit, like they know they have a pretty cohesive feel to what kind of like aesthetic or setting that they're going for, and the music comes along with that. Like it's all very like the world setting and world building of the franchise is I think quite on the nose, and in a good way. They hit it on the head.
Yeah, I'm gonna look and see here if I can find the composer.
Oh yeah, I have it up. David,
do you? Okay.
David Berjod. I don't know, maybe the D is silent, but
probably silent.
David
I don't.
Berjod, Bergeaud. So he is French.
Probably Berjod. Yeah. He is. Oh, look, he's done all types of Ratchet and Clanks. He's done everything. Oh, he did Disruptor for them as well. So he did all the Ratchet and Clanks. He did Resistance. And then just like a few other
films
things
too, like quite a few films. Yeah, he's
cool.
Yeah, he's done. Like we're talking Midnight Run. No, wait, Midnight. No, that's okay. Yeah. Anyway, yeah. So this was back in the day, but yeah, he's done a lot of television as well. But yeah, he's apparently the Ratchet and Clank guy.
Yeah, looks like it. Looks like it for sure. Yeah. Wow. Yeah. Oh, this is.
Oh, and he did Disruptor.
This is a different Midnight Run. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. But he did Disruptor, their first game too. So he's been with them for a while.
Very cool. Anyway, yeah, it's worth calling him out because I do really love the music in this series. And again, like you said, it's not distinctive in the sense of like I could whistle Ratchet and Clank music. The melodies don't necessarily stick, but they're perfectly enjoyable while you're in there playing, and they do really help set the scene. So yeah, big fan. I think that's basically everything we wanted to talk about this time, and anything we didn't get to, we'll talk about next time. So maybe unless there's anything else you want to bring up, maybe we should turn to feedback.
I think it's good. That's good timing. Yep.
So one thing we didn't
natural.
do this past time is say how far we were playing. I think we're going to want to do basically half the remaining levels so that we can do this in 4 weeks. Because there's a bunch of levels left for us. We're like 6 levels in, and there's like 17 or 18. So so we're going to have to do like another 6 levels. So
after this, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 without revisiting, more to go. So
okay, so another 6, because then we'll do 5 the week following and do our wrap up.
Any revisits we want to do,
Yep.
Okay, so 6 more levels. So
I aim to do 6 more levels from wherever you are now. I will do the same, and
so that might be.
I think it's pretty much a linear shot. So I think occasionally things branch up, but it's fine if we don't play exactly the same levels. We're mostly talking about broad topics anyway.
Bomb. So for me, that would be Bomb Factory.
Okay,
you're one behind me, so
I'll just go to Bomb Factory. That's fine.
Yeah. Well, that's including 1, 2. That's including Bomb Factory. So finishing Bomb Factory would be maybe the goal. Yeah.
All right. Cool. Yeah, we'll aim to do that then, as it were. So let us turn then to feedback. These were sent to devgameclub@gmail.com. I, of course, have given you all the long ones. So if you want to take the first one away, I would appreciate it.
Mm-hmm. Seems like usually the case. Okay. This is an interesting subject. Why Gao is my favorite? Spoilers/hints from Mystery Dip. Hi, Mystery. Thank you for coming to my streams. He is enthralled by this wacky game of Death Stranding. And I think is happy that he doesn't have to play it himself. Final Fantasy VI has an almost XCOM level of discoverability about it, which is great when we were kids and had hundreds of hours to spend on it. Nowadays, and with the pace you two are playing, it becomes more of a problem. Anything that doesn't make itself logically apparent quickly gets tossed aside as, I don't have time to figure this out. I'll stick to what I know, which is unfortunate because I think you'd have more fun if you understood the mechanics more. Yeah, I think that he makes a good point there. And that is a common problem with especially games like Final Fantasy VI that we play, because there's definitely times I have definitely said that to myself of like, I sure that Gao has all sorts of stuff to offer. There's no way I'm going to be able to have time. So you kind of got to beeline it. So he goes on and he says, take Gao, my favorite character. Gao turns the game into Pokemon. If you had all your Pokemon at once, if you grind enough, not recommended, he can eventually learn around 250 different monsters. The monsters you can leap into, the monsters you can fight until he returns, and he will learn. When you select a rage, you can do one attack and one special, magic, etc., that monster does 50-50 chance per attack. If the attack would normally use MP, it costs Gao nothing. Wow. In addition, he gains the ability of that monster, flight, immunities, absorptions, etc. There are even some items later on that allow him to do 2 or even 4 hits per turn, which, depending on the ability, can do massive damage. The game then becomes selecting the best monster to counter whatever you happen to be up against, and is especially useful when there's a monster that consistently kicks your butt but has some particular weakness. Gao most likely has a counter or immunity for it. If you have Go-Go in the same party, he can copy Gao's rage as well. Wow, that seems like quite a combo.
It's a complicated thing. I mean, the thing is though, for me, like, I would have to take notes about all the things that Gao does, right? That was basically the thing. Is like, in the moment, I don't remember what all these different creatures do, right? I would just basically always go to like the Magitech ones. Was like, oh yeah, those do a lot of damage. If I had Gao in my party, and that's basically what I relied on. Like, oh, okay, I know that one does a pretty good amount of damage, so I'll just select that one because I know what it does. Yeah. Not that it's the best choice to do at the time. So that was the big thing for me. Is just
well, it's Gao. Yeah, Gao is a character where you study this game to be successful.
Yeah.
You're not just playing it, but you're like mastering even just knowing the vulnerabilities and what counters what isn't clear to you in the game.
Right.
So maybe it's in the manual more clearly, but he goes on to say, Gao is the druid of the party, able to jack of all trades through the use of wild shape. This all goes back to my comment on your stream about the CCG level interactivity of different characters and how making use of synergies can be powerful. In short, in parentheses, he says long, there's a ton of depth in many characters, which I recommend looking up after you guys finish to see how many kitchen sink systems they threw in. Regards, Mystery Dip. Yeah,
I want to point out I actually merged 2 emails from him, Gao being the druid of the party. It came in a follow-up email, but I figured I'd just drop it kind of in the middle there. And he also had particularly said that he enjoyed the interview with Sebastian. So
cool, awesome, yeah.
But yeah, this is definitely one of the things, us playing it at the speed that we're playing it and being people who have a lot more going on in our lives than you do when you're 10 or whatever and you're playing this game. We just don't have the kind of time to do those sorts of things. I mean, I definitely had the sense of like, oh, Gao has a lot to offer.
Oh, I could see it.
It just doesn't fit my life. So.
Yeah. No, he along with Realm, right? That's why actually it was between he or Realm when I got to that point. I was like, well, I have my kind of like go-to 3 that I'm definitely going to take. So who's my 4th? I want to pick somebody who's a little bit different and non-traditional. And Gao, I get the systems and what they're going, and Pokemon did come to my mind as well. But I feel like Gao is more of a character that once you know how he works, you probably want to use him the whole game, so like he's constantly gaining stuff rather than just deciding when I did, and Realm seems more reactive to like who you are fighting. So that's why I went with Realm. And I don't even fully think I'm using Realm in the most efficient way either, but I definitely could appreciate Gao right away. I just knew what I was getting myself into as well. So,
For sure. Okay, well, I'm going to take one here. Thanks, Mystery Dip. One from Zachary, who says, "Hey there," and this is short. The subject is original sprites versus emulation FF6. And he just points out it's something we didn't talk about, but he says, "Not sure if you covered this or if it's something that you're already aware of, but I found this fascinating, seeing this side by side of how the Final Fantasy VI sprites used to look on a CRTV versus how they look today." Which is something to consider when you're talking about how things look. I mean, I think that on the sort of the version I played on the SNES Classic, I think they try to make it a little better.
Don't they have a feature that you can turn on?
I feel like they do.
Blur it or something.
And I may have put it on at some point. But yeah, TVs are definitely very different now than they used to be. I mean, I still have a CRT in my house. At this point, more from laziness than because I'm actually going to do anything with it. But I do have one. Many of the games we've played that are console games, I played on that TV. So, it's nice.
Well, you're using it then?
No. I don't mean I played them this time. I mean back when I played them when they first came out. Now I'm just connecting to my TV that through my various adapters. But yeah, I mean, there's definitely it's a big difference, right? How pixel art looked on a CRTV versus how it looks on a monitor, or the equivalent of a monitor, even a TV.
Yeah,
these days is very fair. Similar. Mm-hmm. I'll put the link in the show notes. It's a Imager. I don't know how people pronounce that gallery for people who want to look, but it is something I'm familiar with. It didn't come up because it's hard to talk about that on the radio. And now I will read a longer email just to be fair. This is from Blarg42. He says, "You must gather your party before venturing forth. Greetings once more, Brett and Tim. I want to start off by saying how shocked I was, in a good way, when I saw that you had chosen Final Fantasy VI for your latest series. This may sound over the top, but I literally almost dropped my phone in surprise and may have also shouted, 'No way!' or something along those lines. You see, I had pretty much resigned myself to the fact that you might never play another 16-bit JRPG, or at least not this one, since it was so close in time to Chrono Trigger, and those two are generally regarded as the pinnacle of the generation. And I certainly didn't expect it so soon after the Chrono Trigger series. But once I got over my initial pleasant shock at your choice, I was a bit worried that you might not appreciate Final Fantasy VI fully, having played the latter game first, since Chrono Trigger has a clear advantage in terms of technical aspects like visuals and presentation. And of course, its non-random battles and brilliant time travel mechanics, which really made it feel ahead of its time. Excuse the pun. I guess these worries were also based on my own experience, as I didn't fully appreciate the game myself at first. As someone who mostly started gaming on PlayStation 1, I tried 6 after playing 7 through 9, pretty much my 3 favorite games back then, and it was the first playthrough of a 2D game I spent any real time or effort on. Jumping into a 2D Final Fantasy at that point was a bit of a culture shock, and it wasn't until I later played the equally amazing Final Fantasy IV that I finally got acclimated to the older style. But with each subsequent playthrough, I've grown to love Final Fantasy VI more and more. I can now safely say it's my favorite 2D game of all time, and in my top 4 Final Fantasies. Anywho, judging by Tim's comments on the random battles and such, it seems I may have been right to worry, but then again, it sounds like you both really enjoyed the game overall, so maybe not. Just don't forget that Chrono Trigger had the combined might of Final Fantasy, Dragon Quest, and Dragon Ball's greatest minds behind it, so it's not exactly a fair fight. Well, I guess I should ask a question at this point. I thought I would go for a pretty simple one this time, though it may be easier for Brett to answer than Tim. Now that you've both played at least a fair number of both Western and JRPGs, what are some of your favorite RPG characters? And do you feel like they tend to come more from one region or the other? My personal top 10 would only feature characters from Japan, I suspect, but then again, I've played through nearly 30 JRPGs and finished far fewer Western ones. So in a way, my perspective is the opposite of Tim's. Feel free to answer this any way you want. I'd love to hear your top 10. I'll be happy with a top 3 or whatever if that's too taxing. Yeah, we're off the cuff, so I don't think so. Lastly, he hopes that you've managed to complete the game because it has a great ending, etc. Make sure to turn the volume way up before the final fight. Headphones recommended. I kind of hoped you or Sebastian would mention Dancing Mad during your rate interview. I guess I'll just have to read up on it once my book order arrives. Yeah. So, favorite characters. Go. I just need 10, maybe 20 in RPGs.
Yeah, I mean, as soon as he threw that out there, I started thinking about it immediately. And it's a very interesting, weird question for me because I guess, he said it in the mail and everyone knows, like, I'm not a JRPG player, so it's hard. Like, that whole category is really hard for me, but I only really have what I've played on the podcast, really. The Robo, I'm a big fan of.
You do love your Robo.
Robo's quite good, and Glenn, I think, was a surprising winner for me too, kind of emerging over time, especially as his story and history was emerging. And the thing about the Western versus Eastern problem, the reason that I'm stuck on it, the Western RPGs that I tend to like are often either not, if they're party based, they tend to allow you to not, like Icewind Dale, for instance, right? Like, you're not playing with a party, you're playing with a party you make for the most part, or at least that's how I would play. And so there isn't like that same sort of sense of, and I'm not a big BioWare fan, so, which I think I mentioned before, so maybe Torment would have the skull's name, I'm escaping me right now.
Mort,
yeah. Mort comes to mind as a fun example. And then so I guess when it comes to characters that come to mind, the weirdest ironic thing about it is Chrono Trigger. When I think about like characters, that are like discrete characters, not just because Western RPGs for me, other than maybe the Witcher games, which I think the Witcher games have some good ones, but those are kind of in their own bucket. Like whatever the Elder Scrolls games or I don't know, it's just more of like it's the whole thing, like it's you against the world, and so characters don't stand out as much to me, I think, in those games. And in JRPGs, like that's kind of their bread and butter. It's like you're gonna have the parties, like their whole focus is like making the characters as distinct from each other as possible. Well, yeah, BioWare does that to some degree, but yeah, I don't know. I'll think about it some more though. It is putting me on the spot. I know there's got to be some Western RPG characters that resonated with me that I'm forgetting. But
yeah, for me, I love Vivi.
Yeah, Vivi's pretty high. Yeah, he's pretty good.
Vivi, I think, is pretty great. I love the Han Solo stand-in from Final Fantasy XII, whose name I can never quite remember. I think it's Balthor?
San Holo?
Not in fact San Holo. Good guess. Good guess. I actually like him and the Vieira companion that he has, even though I can't remember their names whatsoever. Oh, let's see here. Bosch, that's his name. No, Baltier. Baltier is that's the one. Baltier and Fran is the Vieira. I actually like some of the Mass Effect characters. I like Rex a lot.
Yeah, I like Tali.
Yeah, and I also like the scientist there, Morden.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think that's his name.
That's a good one.
Morden.
Yeah, I think so.
I like those. I mean, your shepherd is your shepherd, so it's it's kind of hard to that's a very sort of different sort of thing. It feels like less of a character than a bag of potential characters. So there's not like one shepherd. But your shepherd you might like quite a lot. I liked in Dragon Quest 7, I guess it was, the like goblin-y character who's part of your party from the beginning, and then I like the guy who comes with you in what is the Pokemon like, Ni no Kuni, the one who's always saying tidy, or whatever. I like him a lot. He's not really a character you fight with, but he's with you all the time. I like him. He's great. He's sort of your guide into that world. So I like that. I like that character a lot. The one with the bell, the lantern hanging from his nose or whatever, that your mother made you. I like him a lot. As a character.
That little guy. Yeah, I played.
Character.
I played maybe 10 hours of that game, but I remember him. Yeah, very clever.
Yeah, I played all the way through. I finished that game, and I like that a lot. So those are some characters I like a lot. So some from Japan, some from the U.S. or from the West, I should say, because actually Canada. But yeah, those are some I like a lot.
Yeah, it's interesting that I'm having a crisis of faith here to some degree because I'm such a fan of the Western RPG mold, but it's very interesting to me that characters are not coming to mind other than from the Witcher series, but I think it's mainly more because I'm more recent with those.
Yeah. There's a lot of archetypes there as well, right? More so than it's hard to feel like the characters are fully developed. Like I'm not a huge fan of the Dragon Age characters.
I haven't even played a Dragon Age character.
Yeah, I couldn't even I'm like, well, I had my Inquisitor. Like a lot of them have funny scenes. I guess Iron Bull is pretty good. I like him a lot. I think that's Freddie Prinze Jr. plays Iron Bull. He's pretty funny because he's, I don't know, not safe for work, I guess. he's very raunchy. His romance scenes, I watched his romance scenes. They're hilarious. I did not romance him, but he's a pretty good character as well. So I guess I like the BioWare characters more than you do, but those are the ones that stood out. Not a lot from the one, I guess, from Dragon Age. I can't think of any others.
Well, it's funny that we didn't mention. I mean, there are so many characters that are supposed to be pretty distinct in Baldur's Gate, but we didn't. It
Yeah.
didn't
Nope.
even pop up.
Doesn't
I mean,
register.
a lot of people would probably mention what's his name with the hamster.
Minsk, yeah.
Minsk, right? But yeah, they just didn't. They don't resonate. They don't land with me. Again,
Yeah.
it's like when I'm playing those games. I think part of it is that I do equate Western RPGs so much to D&D and to Tolkien that, like, I don't think of it in those terms. I think of it like we're just an adventuring party going on this adventure. Like it's not about character development somehow. I don't know. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. It just is a thing. I mean, to be honest, when it comes to memorable characters for me in the RPG realm, I actually take much more. I have many more examples in MMOs than I do in like traditional single player games. So yeah, but anyway, yeah, it's a good question. It's you definitely are making me think.
Crisis of faith here with Tim.
Interesting.
Yeah, let's hit your last email, and then I will push. Blarg42 has like a second long email, but I'm going to push that one to next time. And let's catch up with Mikhail and call it a night.
Okay. Secret shame conclusion or shame no longer from Mikhail Danielson. Hello, sir. Welcome back. Greetings, gentlemen. This email is a bit on the late side, for I had in fact finished Final Fantasy VI by the time you read my last one, so no worries on the spoiler of the last two dragons. But speaking of those dragons, I can't help but feel a bit tricked about the fact that they were hidden away in the last dungeon. Yeah, I was wondering if somebody was going to bring this up. Now, while I appreciate that the RPG genre has grown a lot since the time of Final Fantasy VI's release, I still feel that the conventions of the genre, even in games preceding this one, had taught me that when given an optional side quest, you're meant to be able to finish it before you enter the final dungeon. Totally agree, sir. When I found out that they were in the last two in the last dungeon, I was like, that doesn't track. He goes on, I can't really say I was upset or anything of that sort, but it certainly caught me off guard that I basically had to accept I wasn't going to find them and instead embark on actually finishing the game to find the last two dragons. Maybe I just hadn't played the game that preceded Final Fantasy VI, where entering the final dungeon wasn't really the point of no return, so to speak. Concerning Terra's morph/trance ability, of which I spoke of in the previous email, you can most certainly cast spells in that form. It's just that she can only stay in the form for a certain amount of time. Her ATB bar is replaced with a green bar that starts full and then ticks down. Okay, but anyway. Why this is I had to look up myself, since it's certainly not explained in the game. The bar represents the amount of magic APs she's stockpiled, in quotes, from winning battles previously. What? Up to a maximum of 255, and if the bar depletes entirely, she won't be able to morph again until she's gained a set amount of AP once again. But again, why do you do it? Is she more powerful in that state? Anyway, I'll keep going. I even looked in my manual for Final Fantasy Anthology FF5, FF6 for the PSX, and they don't even mention the morph ability, which makes sense, seeing how it would probably count as a major spoiler. Yeah, good point. I would very much like, well, though in the manual they spoil other things, like the characters themselves that you meet.
Yes.
I would very much like to hear your thoughts on having hidden rules like that in games. In this case, it feels like it would be more likely to confuse players more than anything else. I am reminded of a Twitter thread that sparked a lot of interest some time ago, where game devs talked about hidden mechanics that, in many cases, were meant to improve the user's experience in one way or another, linking to a Reddit thread with many of the contributions below. In my mind, this one does not feel like it fits the bill, but I would be curious to hear your opinions on it. Anyway, I was just wanted to thank you again for giving me kick in the butt I needed to finish this epic classic. All the best and stay safe, Mikhail.
So secret or hidden rules or whatever. I mean, I think hidden mechanics, there are a number of them. Things I think of are things like the last bullet does more damage, so you're more likely to, have a kill on that final bullet. I think that was a Gears of War thing, but maybe prior to that. So there are sometimes rules like that just kind of heighten the excitement, and they're hidden, and they just kind of make you feel cooler, because interesting dynamic moments happen more frequently. I didn't go track down the thread. I haven't read I'm not a Reddit guy, so I haven't gone and looked into all of that. But there are generally some cool ideas in those sorts of things. Actually went and looked now, and I see that it was Jennifer Shirley, who I can't remember where she is now. She's working on Shipbreaker now, but she used to be at ArenaNet. And there are tons of things, that just interesting ideas, just things that sort of nudge the player towards more interesting things, and that's a lot of fun. So it is enjoyable. Yeah. The last bit of health, has more hit points than the rest of it to encourage of just surviving. Yeah, that's very similar to the last bullet doing more damage and things like that. So yeah, there's tons of them in here. I mean, there are lots. I don't know that we've ever done any. I guess I did sort of. There was a mechanic in.
Sorry, I just read one that cracks me up.
We'll get to that in a moment. In Starfighter, the enemies would deliberately miss you for the first several shots to give you the chance to to dodge and things like that. It was more just communicating. It's not a mechanic really. It's just the AI sort of tracks back from over leading you, so that things will you'll see the laser bolts flying in front of you. And it'll sort of track back, and that's just to sort of heighten the excitement. It's not that I couldn't have just hit you the first time. The AI certainly could do that. It just was more fun to do it the other way. I mean, so you see something, you have a chance to react, etc. We probably do some things like that in Republic Commando as well, that are not immediately coming to mind. But that game doesn't much, but I'm sure there's some mechanics.
Yeah, I mean, it's not maybe exactly the same thing, but I would say that we talked about it in the series, but the fact that they would predict where you were going and stay ahead of you. So, I mean, it was the reason we did it was to keep them in your view and to have you, have it feel more of a squad. But it did have mechanical implications, right?
For sure,
tricking the AI to do things based on the linearity of the level and stuff. Anyway, yeah.
Which one of these did you read and make you laugh?
Where is it? In Jak and Daxter, they would trip players to mask the presence of loading.
Yeah, that's good. That's pretty good. Yeah,
that's pretty funny. To basically, I assume I haven't played that game, but I assume it changes the camera view, so it
just stops you so that there's more time to load what's up in front of you, because it slows you down, right, effectively.
Yeah. That's okay. That's a little bit, but there's a lot of good ones, definitely. I assume you'll put this in the show notes maybe, but there's a lot of good ones to read here that are great examples.
It's pretty good. There are tons. There are tons. One I can think of, actually. This is in one of the Resident Evils, but basically you have to run out all of your ammo on an enemy. It doesn't matter how much you have. And so it's like, if you've got a ton of ammo, the fight goes on forever. Like, it might be Code Veronica or something. I can't remember which one it is, but it has a fight where it's entirely keyed off of how much ammo. That's kind of dastardly.
I don't know about that.
Yeah, because it's trying to do the dramatic thing where that last bullet matters, or whatever it is.
That's a better idea on paper than
it doesn't scale well. So that is that's unfortunate. You feel like you've yeah, I mean, it does kind of work against the person who's been hoarding all their ammo the whole game. It's kind of like punishes them, but that's not necessarily a good thing. Anyway, thank you for all of those emails. I will, of course, put the various links in the show notes for folks to follow up on. We have a few more emails. I think we're almost to the end of the Final Fantasy VI stuff, so we'll just be getting past Ratchet Clank when we finally catch up on all the email. But that is our show. Thanks for coming by and listening to us for an hour and a half. I am looking for my outro stuff. You can send reviews to your podcatcher of choice. Apple Podcasts and other podcatchers reviews helps us reach new listeners. We, of course, do no advertising of any kind, even really shouting out on Twitter or anything. We just kind of do our show. So if you have a moment and want to do one of those, that'd be great. Or you can send us email at devgameclub@gmail.com with your feedback. We like to read all the reviews and of course, comment on your email. I am still backed up on a number of emails. I will try to get to them soon. Sorry for the slow replies. You can find us on the web at devgameclub.com or on Twitter at devgameclub. We can also find my co-host at
Tim Longo Jr. with the JR at the end.
And, of course, you are still streaming on Twitch. I've pretty much given it up because I am far too busy. Maybe we should talk about that. You are at twitch.tv/Tim Longo Jr. with a JR at the end. You are still... Well, you're not in Kansas anymore, I gather.
Nope. I don't want to give away necessarily where I am per se, but I'm heading back. I made it to the coast and I killed what must have been the big boss, and turns out it's not, as in any, I guess, damn Kojima game. So yeah, I'm heading back, but I've made some good progress. It's I mean, I've lost words to speak about this game. I am still enjoying it. It is an intriguing game. But I'm kind of stuck in a little bit apart right now. But I don't know. One of our listeners, Calamity Nolan, and one of the viewers as well, says that I might have like still 6 hours or so, 8 hours to go. So making my way.
Making your way back to US, yeah. Babe.
Yeah.
The other place you can find us on Twitter is at Twin Suns Corp. Since our last episode,
yes, we have.
There has been an announcement.
Thank you for remembering. Yes,
I don't think that came out until after we had recorded.
No, I don't.
It has been made official. Tim announced the company a bit further back, but I actually started working for it in June, and we've been working together, podcasting together, playing D&D together twice a week for the last 9 weeks now. So yeah, welcome. You have enough Brett in your life? You're getting enough?
No, I mean,
I have enough vitamin B.
Yeah, I have enough. Yep, I need to cut back. Maybe no. It's been good. It's been good. Yeah, we have all flavors of Brett and Tim time now. So any flavor we can think of.
Yes, indeed.
Indeed. So yeah, Brett has and has always been. Though we announced it, we wanted to kind of make a big deal out of a group of folks at the same time. So he is not alone. But yeah, look up the news on twinsunscorp.net website. Happy to have him, and he is already our MVP. So
you should also, you'll see a bunch of people that we interviewed last year for Republic Commando there as well. I think 3. Is that right?
Yeah, Greg, Paul, and Harley, you think?
Yeah, Greg, Paul, and Harley, I think, are the 3 currently that were part of that as well. Mm-hmm. But everybody's been terrific to work with, so it's really been a great time. So enjoyed that a lot. In any case, moving on to the outro. Yep, the company is going. Our intro and outro music was written and performed by Kirk Hamilton, commissioned by Friend of the Cast, and our logo, of course, is by Mark Garcia, who has made some truly terrifying art over on Twitter, which you can find. Have fun considering a new career as a suck cannon test dummy this week, and good night.
Good night.